Hey, I'm Tony.
I'm Craig.
And we're coming to you from the corner of a pub.
As the sun was setting o'er the bright meadows of Shelby, a rebel hand set the head ablaze.
Yeah, you gotta go back and look at what was the original purpose for law. What was the original intent? What was the intent of the Constitution? It was to protect your rights. It wasn't to grant them or to set up society or anything like that. All it was meant to do was to protect you and to ensure your rights. And then you had the states coming up with laws that were going to set up so that the states would be protected from the overreach of the federal government. Never a matter of, well, we're going to do this to establish a moral society. John Adams said that, this form of government that we have come up with can only be maintained by a moral and religious people. He didn't say that was going to establish that. He said this is what it's going to take for this to survive. And so I think there's so much you can look at. You go look at the Declaration and you read all the grievances that are listed out in there, and you can get an idea of what the intent was behind them even creating that. And so much of that was an infringement on rights that were already recognized.
So, wait a minute. So you're saying that they were in disagreement with their rights being violated by someone far away ruling and making decisions for them where they were in their every day-to-day?
Yeah. It became a government that I think they had consented to. They didn't enter into that, I guess, under the authority of that government by consent. They were just born into it, but it certainly became one that they expected there was going to be a certain way they're going to be treated. And all of a sudden, they realized that they have zero representation back where this government is meeting, and there's no recognition for the rights that they expected to have as Englishmen, because that was the custom for England at the time, was that you have certain rights as Englishmen, and they realized those weren't being recognized. But even in the writing of the Declaration, it doesn't say, "Hey, you're violating our rights as Englishmen." You're just violating our rights.
Yeah. So, well, I can't help but think that when you look at a voting map, like say during the presidential general election, by county, you can see the state of New York is geographically more conservative,
right,
than it is not, at least in its voting patterns. And then I have to think that they live miles away from New York City, or from Cuomo, who from henceforth will be known as Smack Wiener. So I just feel like that's a fair thing.
Yeah.
So he's making decisions for all those people in rural areas and telling them how they have to live, and they have no representation.
Right.
It's done, one and done. This is how it is. This is how it's going to be for us. You look at those other counties; they're doing great with how they're managing the pandemic because they did not get so condensed or so dense in their population. They spread out, disperse. They live a whole different lifestyle. As I guess New York City versus Topeka, Kansas, totally different.
Oh yeah.
And yet it's still that, hey, I know we're a long way away from you, but here you go. This is your one size fits all mandate. I don't know. I can't help but think we still have that same evidence of dissatisfaction with somebody far away infringing on our rights, but yet where's the collective speaking up, or where's even the isolated speaking up? What did you say, 3%?
Right.
Led the revolution?
Right. It's a good question of where's the outrage? Where I think you're starting to see it, and the responses haven't been to the federal government. They've been to the state governments, which has been pretty neat to see. It took a little while for that to happen, but you are finally seeing a couple weeks ago when they're starting to have protests outside different Capitol buildings. And then it was just the other day that in Michigan, they had a protest for that, like a 77-year-old man who, the barber who got his license stripped without due process. The county, I think it was a county judge, stepped in and said, "Hey, Governor, sorry, you don't get to just take away this man's license without due process," which it's a separate conversation for discussing whether or not the man needs to have permission from the government to cut your hair.
Right.
But then it was him and a bunch of others. I think even the salon owner from Dallas went all the way up there, and they started cutting a bunch of people's hair right outside the state capitol.
I like that. I mean, I got grilled on where I got my hair cut during the midst of that. Now, thankfully, we have friends that did all that. She owns her own shop. She can do all those things that she taught my wife years and years ago how to do it exactly the way I like it. So, by the way, my wife can give like one haircut style. If like I ever change my mind, I'm out of luck.
You either have Tony today or hippie.
Yeah, that's it. Which I'm not opposed to the whole Duck Dynasty beard motif. I mean, I really think that that'd be great as an HR manager, just to come in there and see some man that looks like he just crawled out from under a log, living in the wild.
Really make you, second guess your tone.
That's true. You get called into the principal's office. It's like, look, Sasquatch here's wearing a tie, but I'm not sure what I'm going to get. But I was grilled at work because, hey, where'd you get that? Where did that come from? And I had to give the backstory about 3 times. And I didn't realize it. I just thought they were curious, like, hey, I want to get a haircut, during this pandemic. And then I realized later on, no, that was not the purpose of that. Yeah. Let that sink in a bit. I told Candace, I guess I'm going to have to do a time lapse for the next time you give me a haircut so I can show that, nope, this is legit.
So I'm a little speechless right now.
No, that's okay. I mean, I was too when it dawned on me why I was being asked those questions is it, there's a difference between, hey, we're curious, we want to make sure people are safe versus enforcing things that, and like I said, everybody's like, well, there's good intentions, I think, okay, go biblical for you. Here's how I think of good intentions. Uzzah. I ask people, who is Uzzah? And 99% of the people have no idea. But they're moving the ark, contains the promises and testimony of God, made a certain way where God allowed Moses to see what it actually was like in God's presence. So he made the copy here to show they're transporting it wholly. They're not transporting it the right way. Oxen stumbles. Uzzah puts his hand up on it, drops dead.
Right.
What was the rule?
Don't touch it. Yeah.
Just don't touch it. I mean, it's a simple rule. Don't touch.
Right.
God who made you says don't touch it. Don't touch it. And this is, by the way, coming from the Tony paraphrase version of this chapter. But so David parks it, goes back home and stews for like 3 months. These people that have this park there at their threshing floor area, man, they're getting blessed. They got God's blessing all over because they're respecting the ark. And then it dawns on David that he wasn't doing it right, that God didn't need Uzzah to keep his promise from falling.
Right.
God was going to take care of his own promise.
Right.
He wasn't going to go through that much trouble and then an oxen stumbled, oops, it fell. He didn't need us. He didn't need our help. So David does it the right way the next time. And Uzzah obviously believed in God, knew his law. Obviously he was important enough to the transport of the ark for God that he was a part of that detail. But in a moment's notice, he had good intentions.
Right.
And they were totally misapplied. And I will tell you, that's where I feel like with this whole government expansion that happened during the pandemic is most of your business owners would make good decisions on their own. They want customers to come. So you want your customers to feel safe. You want your customers to know they're protected and all these things. And yet, under the guise of good intentions, nobody questioned how authoritarian it was just to go and shut people down, take over things, find people, arrest people, writing down license plates of churchgoers. I mean, come on now. But it was for good intentions.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that want to point at business owners and say, well, if you just let them make the decisions, they're just going to decide on how they can best make a buck. I'm sorry, but there's no good business owner that's out there just looking at tomorrow. They're looking 5 years, 10 years, even further down the road. And what are the things that they need to do today to make sure that their business is still operational? Now, are there some that are just looking to make a buck? Yes.
Right.
Guess what? They're not going to be around that long. You just can't survive that way. It comes out in time. And instead, when you end up treating every business owner like they're the guy that's in there just to make money and exploit people, you end up punishing a whole lot of people that they're not guilty of that.
Right. Yeah, there's a crazy thought.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that you mentioned a little bit ago about your haircut and how you're getting grilled about how and where you got a haircut.
Yeah.
And this whole idea that somehow something was amiss because it had been decided by the powers that be, even if you're a business owner that didn't even support the election of the people who made decisions. You didn't support the governor or the county judge, but you're subject to their dictates, we'll say.
Yeah, I like dictates.
And so now you're having to be subjected to that. And the reasoning was what? For your safety and the safety of the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's better to starve to death than it is to have the elderly catch a disease.
Yeah. Okay. So now we've got, let's go ahead and assume good intent. Perhaps that's what it was. If you want to know, then watch how this all plays out.
Yeah.
So you can say it's for safety. Now, there were restaurants or grills and bars, places that served alcohol, that had a bar, that also served food.
Yep.
They had a time when they were able to serve food but not alcohol. You and I can sit down, we can have a burger, we can't have a beer. We can have a root beer, we can't have a beer.
Makes sense.
Because somehow that is keeping you protected from the coronavirus and protecting everyone else at the same time.
But yet, pot shops and liquor stores are essential.
Yes, but churches where AA meetings were held could not be open, even for the AA meeting.
Well, because it spreads in churches, but not in big box retailers.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, the fact... Listen, if Walmart's open and you're not having that is a hot zone... You've got to really question how much this thing is spreading.
Yeah, especially when you see that. Go to walmartpeople.com.
Yeah.
You'll be like, okay, if they're not catching it there, I think we're okay.
Or it might just be that Walmart is just so sketchy at some stores that this virus is not even doesn't even stand a chance. Goes in there's just horrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, if you want to understand, have any idea of what's the goal here? Okay, yeah, I believe at some point the goal was, or people at least think that what they're working towards is keeping people safe.
So I can't agree with that.
Okay,
because when I use statistics a lot, not disclaimer, not like a PhD in statistics or data science, but I use analytics and statistics a lot for my job. And sometimes I download data sets to see if I can verify what I see on TV. At no point was there evidence to say that mass amounts of young people were going to be negatively, critically, deathly affected by this. Instead, it really was if you have an underlying health condition or if you're X age or older, you are at high risk.
Right.
So why couldn't we put a fraction of our effort into protecting these folks? And maybe this goes back to what we're talking about with the economy. Hey, why don't we encourage you and make it where you can retire, you can cocoon, the nursing homes can be, isolated so that they're not coming into the nursing homes. And we're going to charge the baby boomer generation to step up and work, step up and take care of this. Don't go to the nursing homes, use common sense, but you're going to go out there and you're going to work to support those that you're supposed to be honoring and taking care of.
Right.
Respect your elder type thing. We don't preach that anymore. So I guess that's what's hard for me is to say, if we really had that good intention and the data told us who was most susceptible, why did we use all the masks for the young people and make everybody stay home? So that the majority of your people working at Walmart are retirement age.
Right.
Majority of people working in grocery stores. Which, by the way, how are we having outbreaks everywhere except in grocery stores, Walmarts, and all those places? Are they immune?
Actually, probably. Just like they're immune everywhere else. We just don't act like they're immune everywhere else. Because they have... I think those people at the grocery stores have this thing called an immune system.
Yeah, I like George Carlin's take on that.
Yeah. You
ever hear his?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's like, go bathe in the one of the rivers or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you get that, and then on your way home, see a French fry on the ground, pick it up and eat it. Yeah, you're going to get sick, but when you get better, you're going to have some artillery in your immune system. Yeah. He goes, I don't know about you, but mine's got tanks and... And I don't know, wasn't the thing before all this, stop using antibacterial soaps all the time and stop using hand sanitizer all the time because it's killing your immune system? Wasn't that the study that came out a year or two ago? It was real big.
Yeah. And now you have this endless supply for some people of antibacterial hand sanitizer to take care of the virus.
Well, and thankfully, as I walk around and see so many millennials wearing masks by themselves in their car, going out to their car and driving, and not taking it off when they get into their car, but they're driving with the mask on to protect themselves from themselves.
And then they go in the store and wear it on the chin.
Yeah, they put it down and it becomes a beard warmer. I love the beard warmer. I want to do that. I want to have it just a segment where we're like, okay, this is the mask, this is the beard warmer, this is the useless. This is the toupee cap, the wind cover, and then back here the yarmulke. I mean,
you could almost make one of them posters. The different types of beards, the facial hair.
Yeah, and that's my favorite. Is all these people working with their nose hanging out. They're like, "It's okay, I'm safe." It's like, yeah, you're doing a great job.
I'm just trying to not get fired. I think this is crap.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I think we're probably on the same page, really. I think at some level, there's some people that are everything they're saying is just a load of crap. They're not genuine at all. I think there's a lot of people at lower levels of government that are not thinking critically, and they're afraid to do anything different than what the so-called experts claim has to happen. If you say, look, people will die if we do not do X. Okay, you can do X and people will still die. They'll die of something else. Someone else will die of something else. And someone will probably die of something other than what it is you're trying to prevent because of the actions you took to prevent the coronavirus or whatever it is. You're going to be trading lives.
Yeah.
So you got to make a decision. But then you have people at lower levels who, you saw one county judge who issues a statement saying, look, I think that our people they're going to take care of this themselves. They're self-quarantining without us having to take away their liberties, and we're good with that. We're just going to leave it how it is. A couple of days later, he turns around, we're shutting it down. There's a stay-at-home order. We're not telling you, hey, you really shouldn't open. We're telling you can't open.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, you can open up again.
Yeah, what happened?
2 weeks, huh? 2 weeks. Okay, you think any business is just going to be like, well, 2 weeks with nothing coming in, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
No revenue, we're good. in a heavily debt-driven society, we're good. And then what? 2 weeks hits, and you're like, well, I guess the curve didn't flatten as fast as they thought it would be. That 2 weeks was a load of crap.
Yep.
But this is nothing than a knee-jerk reaction because they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to have people pin deaths on their head. And the only ones that are really going to be blaming them for those deaths are going to be the people that have some emotional knee-jerk reaction every time something bad happens. And that's who ends up getting all the attention, man. It's that squeaky wheel getting the grease.
Yeah, and that's where my thing is it's good intentions. Well, why does nobody question the experts? Do the math. I was just on yesterday showing my wife. I went on to the new Texas health department's site on showing how many come from long-term care facilities, how many cases and fatalities. And then I went and showed the demographics, and then I went and pulled their dashboard for total deaths and everything. And I started showing, and she says, wait a minute. These numbers don't reconcile. They're not the same numbers. I said, exactly.
Right.
But no one will question the experts because they're the experts. Flattening the curve does not mean less people get it. It means the same amount of people get it over a long amount of time. So this idea that, hey, less people are getting it because we were flattening the curve, that's not what that means. That means they were saying we don't want to overwhelm the facilities. We've talked about this before. Even that overblown model with limited data they did, when you went to Texas, me and a law enforcement captain been keeping an eye on it together because we both kind of come from statistical backgrounds. Even in the overblown height of it, our state never was predicted to even get near its hospital resources. And yet you have the city of Houston spending millions on field hospitals and all these things. And now I found out yesterday they've got firefighter layoffs and things on the agenda.
Oh, where?
In Houston.
Oh.
Yeah. I still don't know how their mayor got reelected, threatening firefighters every year he's in office. But long story short is I can't believe it. People went off the good intentions because, again, nursing homes, oh my gosh, why didn't we funnel resources into protecting? I mean, I can't imagine this world without that generation. The one that ate, slept, and lived World War II and post-World War II economic reconstruction and infrastructure building. We're going to lose them, and then what are we going to have left? But instead, no, it was, what can I do? What about me? And nobody questioned the experts. Nobody questioned so much so that now you've got a mass amount of the American people. Hey, I'm a karate instructor, and so we're going to start meeting in the park so we can stretch out 10 feet apart and do that. You're a murderer. Wait, what?
Right. But Cuomo's not.
Yeah,
that dude's good, man. You can send all the sick people you want to the nursing homes, and that dude still somehow is someone. Well, the governor said.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the karate instructor who's inviting people to even watch from home. That dude's a murderer.
Yep. And it just blows me away. And it's like, okay. So, and then Cuomo on the flip side, again, we know what kind of governing style he supports. Not here's the constitutional limit government. He wants a government that limits the people.
Right.
And so he's telling these conservative ran states in the South that are reopening, you murderous monsters. Yeah, I'm sending sick people to nursing homes. What of it? And yet those monstrous states, they're doing well.
Right.
They're seeing some reduction there. They're seeing it controlled. And, we had a mixed debate yesterday. The whole Trump, when they asked him to clarify what he meant at the Ford ventilator production, when he said, yeah, we may have a second wave and we're not shutting down, basically. He's like, yeah, we'll put out the fires.
Right.
And they said, can you clarify? He says, yeah, we're not shutting down, basically, paraphrase. And, everybody's like, yeah, go Trump. And I'm thinking, where was that the first time?
Right.
At least, there's a lesson learned. But at some point, you've got to go, all right, like we talked about earlier, maybe people can make good decisions. I mean, heck, if they're this scared with the government telling them to be scared, maybe they would actually, start washing their hands and they leave the bathroom at work.
Oh, dude. The number of people I've been in the restroom and they walk out of the stall and just straight out the door, it freaks you out a little bit.
I don't shake hands for that reason.
Yeah.
I walk around with something in my hands all the time. I talked to a lady at work. She said, My dad, he's recovered from leukemia a couple of times. He's actually one of the ones. He's older. He's at risk. But he's a minister. He wants to have church, but his thing is he doesn't want to shake hands after church. And I told her, I said, look at me. What am I doing? She says, well, you're carrying that book and that cup. I said, yeah, my cup is empty, and this book is a programming book. It has nothing to do with what we're doing right now. It dawned on her. She goes, wait, you always have stuff like that in your hands. I said, you're right, because I see these nasty people leaving the bathroom without washing their hands. And it's kind of like, now everybody's like, well, the new normal means we always have to wash our hands. We have to make sure that we're being hygienic. What were you doing before, you nasty people? And you were giving me your political opinion,
Living
and you would wipe and leave?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm just like, welcome to the world I've lived in this whole time, is that I always carry stuff around. Hey, can I shake your hand? No. No, you can't. Well, we've talked about where law comes from. We talked about where rights come from.
Yeah.
We've compared it to what people could be doing, should be doing, some of their free choices they should be utilizing. And really, and I think it comes from the law, doesn't it? That, and if I'm giving the wrong one, don't like punch me or anything, but I think it comes from the law. You were telling me where people get their right to rule, regardless of the government style.
Oh, yeah. It's a collection of the individual right. And if the individual can't do it, then the collective can't do it.
So doesn't it amount to permission?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get down to the difference between coercion and persuasion, because if we're doing it for the right, if I'm doing it because of my right, my duty to my neighbor, my neighbor's rights, all that has persuasion built into it. I'm persuaded to do it because protecting you also protects me. But now if I'm trying to get something from you, from my neighbor, let's say that I want you to, some part of your income to pay for some sort of service that I want or deem that I need. Well, unless you're willing to donate that, that's coming from coercion.
Yeah.
All right, because what happens when you say no? Well, now the law, so to speak, says, well, you have to pay it, and you continue to say no. That's only enforced by the jailhouse or the bullet.
Yeah. So at this point, though, since it's permission, and there is a difference between those two things,
mm-hmm.
and we've talked about the fact that, okay, my rights come from God. They're God-given. I'm born with these rights.
Right.
It doesn't matter if someone recognizes it or not. It's there.
Right.
Our founding legal documents recognize that. The debates surrounding it recognize that, which I found a couple I really want to get your thoughts on. But all that to say this is, at the end of the day, what happens then if business owners just say, we're just opening en masse, nationwide? Right. What do you do with that then if you're the modern government?
It depends how much of a spine you have. It depends how much principle that you have. We've seen that where business owners have said, I'm going to open up. And what happened up in Dallas, you saw the salon owner got thrown in jail. And then the judge says, listen, you're either going to apologize and admit that we were right and you were wrong and you put people in danger, or we're going to hold you in contempt of court. And so that woman, she acted with more guts than a lot of pastors in this area have. And
yeah, absolutely.
She went ahead and she did what was right. She stood tall. All right, and she's a bit of a American hero now in my book. So I think when you start seeing business owners stand up and act like just individuals that have every right to run a business, you're going to end up seeing just exactly where your elected folks stand. Because either they're going to back down, and you're going to find out that you're going to start to see the power of people living like they're free. Or you're going to see someone showing you just how far they're willing to go to make sure that you comply with the orders of some elected person. And sometimes, man, that's a lot uglier than you want to admit that it'll look. We've seen it around here. We've seen the business get told, well, you can serve burgers, but you can't serve beer. Okay, what the heck does that have to do with anyone's health and safety?
Yeah.
You know what? You can get your beer to go. You can get your beer to go. You can go get your strawberry daiquiri to go. Just don't take the plastic wrap off of it on your way home. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
So we're all about safety, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, and you're going to find out, I think, too, that just because someone with a Republican tag on them talks one game and someone with a Democrat tag on them talks another game, they really act the same when it comes to this kind of challenge.
Yeah, people that want to keep Texas red, people that want to turn it blue. Look, it's been purple for a while.
Yeah.
All right. When you have a governor saying, look, we cannot open salons and barbershops just yet, and all of a sudden lady gets thrown in jail. Well, I didn't think you were actually going to throw someone in jail for violating my order. Why are you issuing the order? What do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. No kidding. I mean, it's an opinion and it's an order for a reason.
And this is a fundamental thing everyone's got to come down and start asking themselves. When you say that you want there to be a law saying X, you have to understand that the enforcement of X carries force with it.
Yeah.
All right. If someone violates X, then someone's going to use force against them. Whether it's, hey, you're going to pay us this money or you go to jail. You're going to go to jail or we're going to use force against you. And then that force used against them can escalate.
Yep.
And that all the way up to
always escalates.
It can even include death. Was it worth X? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, someone's speeding through a school zone where there's kids there or they're running people off the road. You have a legitimate threat to people around them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, something needs to be done about that. The guy going 5 miles over the speed limit. I talked to a trooper one time, said that he allowed for about 3 miles over the speed limit.
Oh, bless his merciful heart.
I thought,
wow,
you're a monster. There's no way I could survive around someone like that.
Does he work in this area? I think I really need to know that so I can warn my wife.
Man, it's been a minute. It's been a while.
Okay,
so
good.
I don't know. He might.
Oh man.
We were sitting just down the road when he told me that. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Rest easy, my friend.
All right. So here's my question then. Okay, there's two things that really bother me about that. Is number one, we want to rant about the media's the purpose vocabulary to build towards ratings. That's all it's there for. They purpose the vocabulary, purpose the statistics,
right?
And you can phrase everything in such a way that you do that. Everybody wants to get mad at that. Everybody wants to get mad at the elected officials. But at the end of the day, to me, it comes back to the people. So you're telling me, like, let's say in that same city that salon owner was at that got arrested, you have massive corporate offices there. You're telling me they're too dumb to know how to socially distance their staff, to disinfect and clean their buildings, their skyscrapers, that they manage very efficiently. You're telling me they can't do that on their own. And so that bothers me that you're like, hey, thanks for being the backbone, and you pastors and business owners, thanks for being the community leaders, but you're too dumb to handle this. You're too ignorant. And then on the flip side of that, I get frustrated at the people for listening and believing that, because why was that salon owner the only one open?
Right.
That's the problem. Is what happened? What would have happened if all business said, no, we know how to read a CDC guideline page that's, oh my gosh, it's what, a 3-minute read?
Right.
It's, okay, this is not hard. We can adjust our business practices for this. It's going to make us better. It's going to make us nimble. And we want to keep our outstanding employees that give us a competitive advantage. So we're going to do this in a way that's novel and profitable. What happens if they would open en masse like that? Now the government has to yield and say, okay, we overstepped our bounds. We're not getting permission to rule here anymore.
Right.
But yet what I've heard in our area here from people who claim to be conservative, claim to support that, is, you know what? I'm okay with it as long as it keeps us safe. I kid you not. I've heard that from people, even a business owner here. Well, as long as it keeps us safe, I'm okay with it. Again, that's the mass chasm between words and actions.
I will give up my right to live as long as I don't die. You know, you saw look, Elon Musk. I don't know a whole lot about Elon Musk, but I do know that guy, whether or not he just did it because that's just how he is and that's the way he's going to operate, or he did it because he recognized that as big as he is, as much as he is in the public eye, man, there's not a big chance that they're actually going to throw him in jail.
Right.
And he went and did the same thing that Shelley Luther did, and he came out fine. And what was actually funny was you had a whole bunch of local entities saying, well, no, we're not going to be the ones. That's so-and-so's job to enforce. That's up to them if they enforce it. And no one would actually stand up. I think at first they asked the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office said, well, they're in the city, so that's up to the PD. They asked the PD. So the PD says, well, we're not going to arrest them unless we're ordered to by the health department. Well, hold on. We're a branch of the health department? I thought the chief was appointed to go ahead and be the chief. I didn't realize he was a deputy health officer. You know, but look what he did, man. And what did he do? We're going to go ahead and put in place all these things that we need for our workers to be safe.
Yeah.
And was that because he was made to? No. What does he want to do? Look at Chick-fil-A right now. All right. Could they open up their dining room?
Yeah.
Have they?
Nope.
No. It's not beneficial to them to do that. It's not cost beneficial. And you know what? If people start getting sick at Chick-fil-A, what's going to happen to every Chick-fil-A in the area?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna kill them.
So yeah, they're making a decision that's best for their business model and their mission statement and their values without being told how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's profitable and common sense.
Right. Meanwhile, you leave it up to central planning and somehow it doesn't work out. It's never worked out.
No, ever.
Except in Russia. The reason for this podcast is I think everywhere that we look, we see a whole lot of a big chasm between what people will agree with just in conversation and then the way that they carry out their daily lives, the way that they vote, the things that they know to be true, what they know to be right and wrong. But then when it comes out to supporting different policies, there's this huge disconnect.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we realize is, okay, something that's always helped us when we're not quite understanding something or when we realize we got something wrong, when there's actually a conversation that takes place.
Yeah.
And so we want to have those conversations. We want to talk about some of those things. Some of it's going to be just in the form of us talking, and some of that's going to be in the form of going over some literature, some books, some news stories, and trying to extrapolate from that these different principles. Look, here's what happened. I mean, we just did it right there. We looked at, you had the barber in Michigan. You know, we're looking at that and saying, okay, here's a county judge that recognized you need to have an actual threat for there to be for government to take action and to say that this guy can't operate. There's no threat.
Yeah.
Therefore, leave him alone. It can't just be a theoretical threat. And that county judge actually put two and two together and made some sense. But there's so many other places where someone needs to come in with an actual approach using reason, using logic, and making some of the connections that we see, whether we see it in Scripture and we see it in so many other places. So let's start making those connections. And it's not to say that we figured out how to do all this stuff and how it ought to operate, but we've both been fortunate enough to have different experiences through work, through education, through the people that we've been fortunate enough to cross paths with, that we've gotten to have these conversations. We've got to realize a lot of times that some of our thinking has been wrong and need to be adjusted.
Right.
And years down the road, we're going to have to do the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, without conversation, though, the problem is it's dead.
Right.
It's dead on arrival because you just have to make assumptions at that point. And that's the big issue we have. I'm looking at our news versus Ireland. I'm watching the same thing happen in Ireland with some business owners on the RTE news. Those who walk or drive a little too far, you can't go even to your parents' house. They have police unguarded checkpoints there, and they send you back. They're arresting people who go leave that 2-kilometer area around their house. And there was for the longest time no one willing to have the conversation on a mass level on, okay, is this beneficial or not? Is this helpful? Without the conversation, you can't exchange ideas. I'm actually looking forward to some of the literature you're going to bring, because I think it actually holds us accountable. When we become aware of knowledge, we're now accountable for it.
Yeah.
We have to do something with it. We can't stay ignorant for so long. Whether you're diehard Republican, diehard Democrat, you've already shut off the conversation at that point.
Right.
You're incapable of actually critically analyzing something. We've joked about it before. Sometimes Trump gets it right. Sometimes he gets it wrong. You've got to be okay with both, and with calling it out with both of them. And taking his phone away when he needs to get off of Twitter. You got to have the conversation. Right. But that's the problem. Nobody wants to have the conversation on a mass level. And so I'm hoping through this, we're just a couple of guys having a conversation. Maybe in the comments threads, we start to see some resources being shared on, hey, did you know Fee says this? Did you know Wood says this? Did you know this institute found this? And we start to get the conversation out there to go, okay, I don't have to be blind and spoon-fed a narrative or what people want. I can think for myself. I can make decisions that are best for myself. And instead of being just saturated with a sea of cheap and low information, I can actually get into deep information and make more educated and wise decisions that affect me, my business, my community.
Right.
All because I'm willing to open up and have the conversation to get that information.
Right.
So that's what I hope happens here.
You ever have a conversation with someone that it becomes kind of clear that they operate in like an echo chamber?
Yeah.
And there's been times where I've had that happen, and thank you so much.
Oh, this is so cool.
Best service in town, folks.
Thank you.
Man, it really, I've had people they'll bring up points and they make me wonder if I'm operating in an echo chamber. And when you have the right folks in front of you, man, if you're fortunate enough to have some good folks that are willing to bring up good questions, take advantage of that, and there have been so many times where someone has put forth a question I've never even thought about asking, and I realized that I was just running off an assumption. And so let's not do that anymore. Let's stop that. And where we have these principles that we can understand and agree on, especially biblical principles, let's take those out to their logical conclusions and let's start applying those. You're going to find truths they'll be found in Scripture. They're going to be found in economics. Yeah. They're going to be found in philosophy and psychology. They're going to be found in politics. And when they're violated, you're going to see the problems with those things.
Yeah.
The problem is we start looking at just the symptoms. Just the symptoms. Just what do we see on the outside? We don't really get deep into, okay, what's causing that? Is there something that can help us avoid that? You could have Republicans and Democrats looking at the same problem and having these different ways of solving it, and they're both way off. No one really understands what the root cause of that is. They just see, well, look, you have poverty, or you have this threat. Okay, why do you have that threat from this place in a different part of the world?
Yeah.
On the other side of the globe, why do you have this poverty? And to me, you're going to find that both sides are doing things that are kind of proliferating their very cause that they're working against.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the sides. Let's get rid of the letters. Let's get rid of the titles and all of it, and just abandon all for the sake of truth.
And see, that right there was just me going on passionate point. It was not a rant because I didn't use anyone's mother as an example.
So what would that be? It wasn't a rant. It'd be more of a tangent.
I don't know. Would that be a tangent?
I don't know. That's what I've been accused
A
of.
rambling, passionate point. I feel like that the point. I think we talked about this before. I think the point that a good point becomes a rant is when it's like, take your mother for example. Okay, now we're ranting.
Yeah.
Now we're starting an argument.
Going a little bit off the rails. Sometimes, though, that's just where the train needs to go.